More than 6 million American women of childbearing age have trouble getting or staying pregnant. Author Michelle T. struggled for 3 years to get pregnant and went through multiple rounds of IVF. Instead of focusing on the stress and anxiety, T wanted to share the joy and humor of her experience as a queer woman in her 40s. She gave birth to her son in 2014, and she writes all about it in her new book, Knocking Myself Up, a memoir of my infertility. Michelle T., good morning.
Good morning.
So your son is 7. Mm-hmm. Why did you decide to write this book now?
Well, it really felt like now that he's a fully formed little person who's in school, I had enough time and space from those early years, which it was like one thing after another. You know, the whole struggle to get pregnant through IVF, that whole journey took up a lot. And then suddenly you have a little newborn, and that's your life. And so there was a moment where I could take a breath and look back on that time with a little bit of distance. And felt like, yeah, I want to dig into that.
So what was the hardest part of your journey?
I think that the hardest part was just all of the unknowns, you know? Like at first, I didn't even know if my body could get pregnant. And then I learned that it couldn't. And I was really lucky because my partner at the time also had ovaries. And so I ended up stealing one of their eggs and, you know, going through IVF and doing those treatments. And that's a lot of unknowns too. You know, you're really in the loop.
What did you learn about yourself throughout this journey?
I learned a tremendous amount about my body that I didn't even know. I mean, I started trying to get pregnant when I was 40, so I figured I knew how this whole thing worked. But, you know, even something like, you know, every month when you drop an egg, I thought that's what happened. You dropped one little egg, and that's, you know, how, you know, you do or don't get pregnant. But in fact, the ovaries produce all of these eggs, and then one rises to the top and slays all the other.
The good egg.
Right? Yeah, the powerful one. So that was really interesting, and it really explained my PMS. I was like, there is a battle to the death happening in here. So
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What was this like navigating this process as a queer woman? Because that's why I think this book is so important for people to be inspired by your journey.
It was really challenging because, and this was shocking to me, because as a queer person, I understood that a lot of queer people have to seek out, you know, artificial reproductive technologies if they want to start a family. So I expected it to be a lot more accommodating to queer people. And while the individuals that I worked with at the clinic were wonderful and super supportive, it was like the system, you know, the paperwork, the computer programs were not
So give us an example.
Well, one example was because I was using my partner at the time's egg, they had me listed as a surrogate. So all my paperwork said like surrogate, which was, you know, no shade on surrogates. They're amazing and doing amazing work. But
that's not what you were.
Yeah, it felt really alienating, you know, to feel like I was somehow outside of my family and doing someone a favor. So there were things like that. And so I was really shocked that they weren't more accommodating.
Your son is 7 now. Does he know about sort of his backstory? Does he have questions?
I started telling my son the story of his birth when he was very young. My sperm donor is a friend.
Okay.
And we call him Donnie, like auntie.
There's your son right there.
Oh, Donnie, like auntie.
Yeah, so we say, you know, Donnie so-and-so is coming over, so that he always knows that it's never a shock that this other person was so instrumental in his existence. And yeah, he's always known the story, and only recently I had to explain, sometimes people do get pregnant outside of a hospital. You know, he's like, oh, I know how babies happen. You go to the, you know, to the clinic. That is how
There are other ways.
Yeah, there are other ways, and we'll get into that someday, but yeah.
What's your message for people who are struggling to get pregnant? Because it is remarkable how often, I mean, we see these stories increasingly in the last 30 years that it's become difficult.
Yeah.
And so what is your message to those folks who are struggling to get pregnant?
I mean, all you can do is persevere and be hopeful and try to stay optimistic, you know, and trust sort of the technology. I mean, I was really comforted by the fact that my doctor was like, we're going to get you pregnant. That's not, you know, we will get you pregnant.
Makes you feel good, that confidence.
Yeah. I mean, I was also like, but at what expense, you know? So it was also a little like, oh, you know? So, but I do believe that the technology works, and I've heard so many success stories from so many people as a result of doing this kind of writing. So.
Trust the process, huh?
Yeah.
Michelle T., thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Knocking Myself Up is on sale now.